Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Attack on Productions. Fluf here, coming back at you with another deck profile. But before we get into it, please give us a like, subscribe, leave us comments below letting us know if there's anything that you want us to see, or if while I'm going through the card by card of this deck, there's anything that you have to suggest or something that you think I should give a shot in this list. I've been playing around with Xeno Shadow Dragons since the last set came out. I've been kind of testing it on the side here and there, trying to figure out the correct ratios for the deck. And now that we've got set 15 stuff, I feel like I'm ready to finally present the deck to the world for everyone. So looking at the leader on both sides does have blocker. On the front side, on attack, you drop one card from your hand to draw a card. And then at the end of the turn, you're going to switch yourself to active mode. He is a hybrid awakened leader. On the backside, you get 5,000 on a swing, plus you draw a card. The big thing to remember is that by activating extra card Shadow Dragons, or the Shadow Dragon extra cards rather, which I'll be just referring to as extra cards from here on out. Anytime you activate those on the front side, you and your opponent mill. On the back side, only your opponent mills one card. So you could choose to use this in a way to mill your opponent out, similar to Cooler Mill or Janemba. Or you could play it very similar to the way that Shadow Dragons played from set 10, I believe, is when they first came out. But that's the leader, and we'll get into the card by card now. Starting off, we'll talk about the Unison. I'm not 100% convinced this deck has to have the Unison. Most games, I don't even put the Unison out. It's only in longer stally games that you really want to have it, so you don't end up decking yourself out, because you will go through your cards faster than your opponent will go through theirs. But on the plus one, you draw one card, then you place one card from your hand and up to 3 extra dragon extra card Shadow Dragons from your drop area and put them at the bottom of the deck in any order. Then the -7, you get to play up to 7 different Shadow Dragons with different names from your drop area. So that could be a really explosive kill turn for you, and plus it's a good way to keep yourself from decking out turn by turn. So 4 of those, I do plan on testing it without that, and if I find that it works, I will give you guys a new profile. Moving into the extra card Shadow Dragons, we've got Ultimate Whirlwind Spin. So this guy, when you play it, you search the top 5 and you add a battle card Shadow Dragon amongst them to your hand. Then you have the option of discarding one card, and if you do, you give your leader 1,000 power for the turn. Now that is effectively a 5,000 boost for the turn, just because of the way that Dragon Ball works. And the only instance that wouldn't matter so much is if your opponent has like a 16,000 battle card or a 19,000 battle card, where the 20,000 would have been a relevant design choice. But 4 of those, because they're searchers and they make our consistency better. Then I played 2 of the Negative Energy Explosion. These, you're going to look at the top 7. You're going to either add an extra card Shadow Dragon, or you're going to play a Toa Unison if you don't have one on field. So only 2 of these, because we don't care about the Toa very much, and we'll be seeing enough extra cards over the course of the game. Then I do play 2 Ultimate Dark Dragon Slaying Bullets. This is a counterplay, so it's a counterplay for the Unison. I'm not going to read this card. It was introduced in set 14. More importantly is the Activate main, where you get to choose, your opponent chooses one of their battle cards with an energy cost less than the number of cards in their drop area and sends it to their warp. So it can be removable for if your opponent's got a large threat on the field. And if they have a barrier target and a non-barrier target, they have to choose the non-barrier target with this effect. So it's an absolutely great way to remove, but the counterplay is not relevant at all. And I will say that all of the extra cards in this deck count as Shadow Dragon cards. So that will become relevant once we get into the battle cards. Then we play 4 of the Ultimate -Energy Powerball. It's a counterattack that chooses one of your opponent's battle cards with 15,000 power or less, ignoring barrier, and sends it to the owner's warp. If you have a Black Unison in play, you can activate the counter skill without paying its energy cost. And then Activate main, it's a plus 15,000 for a battle card or leader card, which is absolutely amazing. But so yeah, we run 4 of those just to get, where it needs to be. This is probably one of the best extra cards in the deck, especially for modulating battles. Then we play Ultimate Dragon Quake at a 1 of. This, you choose one of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost greater than or equal to their current energy and warp it. At the end of the turn, it comes back unless your opponent has less than 15 cards in their deck, at which point it's just placed in the drop area instead of being returned. But we run this at a 1 of because getting your opponent to 15 or fewer cards in the deck is kind of tricky sometimes, so you don't want to count on that. But it can be a great way to remove or stop a battle. So 1 of those. Then we play 2 of the Ultimate Ice Rays. These activate main battle. Your opponent places the top card of their deck in the drop area. Additionally, you may choose 1 black card in your hand. 2 black cards in your hand, discard them, and your opponent may only attack 1 more time with battle cards. So this is really good against decks that want to go wide with battle cards, and you just want to limit the number of attacks that you do. You don't have a ton of hard negates in this deck, so we want to use this as much as we can. So 2 of those. And then I play 1 Ultimate Dragon Tackle, which this is kind of a unison killer. Your opponent either chooses one of their unisons and removes 2 markers from it for every... Or they either remove 2 markers from it, or you get to draw 1 card and then choose one of their battle cards and send it to the warp. Most of the time, they're going to let you draw and warp. They don't want to lose the markers on their unison. So just 1 of. That wraps it up for the extra cards. Now, talking about the battle cards... For the Shadow Dragon Xeno archetype, all of the cards in this deck have an effect that I'm just going to refer to as the Shadow Dragon effect. But that effect is simply if this card is played or sent or discarded from your hand by a Shadow Dragon effect, flip the top card of your deck up. If it's a Shadow Dragon, add it to your hand. Otherwise, place it at the bottom of your deck. So I'm not going to read that on every card because it turns all the cards into a wall of text. So just referring to that as the natural Shadow Dragon card, every battle card in this deck, except for 1, has that effect. So, just so you know. But let's start out. We run 3 of Syn Shenron Power of Darkness. This for 1 energy lets us play 1 of the 3 drops. Lets us play a Shadow Dragon with an energy cost of 3 or less from our hand for only 1 energy. It's kind of what turns this deck on. So, targets for that are going to be the other Syn Shenron, Negative Energy Explosion. When he's got critical blocker, and then whenever he swings, you choose one of your opponent's battle cards and warp it. So we run 3 of those. He's a 15,000 critical, and then he also restands himself at the end of the turn. So you still get your active blocker at that point. Then we run 4 of Syn Shenron, Power of Darkness. He's a 20,000 double strike, but alternatively, if we use Spirit Boost to play an extra card off the leader, then we're able to pay 1 energy, play this guy from our hand, and make our opponent warp 1. So we could either play it for 1 with the 3-drop or the 1-drop haze, or we can play it for 1 off of Spirit Boosting our leader. And then we run 4 of the Nova Shenron Power of Darkness. This has an ability, it's a 20,000 critical, but in our hand, we're allowed to send it to the warp, burst 1, search the top 5 cards of our deck for a Shadow Dragon with an energy cost of 5 or less and add it to our hand. So it's very similar to the old Oceana from the original Syn Shenron archetype. And then the last kind of target is going to be Rage Shenron Power of Darkness. This is the only hard negate that we have in the deck. So it's a 1-cost negate that is a counterattack, plays this card in rest mode. It is a 14,000 power blocker, which isn't the most relevant thing in the world, and playing him in rest mode kind of sucks. But it's a nice target to play out, pressure your opponent early, and kind of move on from there. So, like, in the early stages of the game, if you're trying not to take damage, you can throw this guy out and move on. So, those are kind of all the targets off the Syn Shenron, what I would consider to be the main engine of the deck. And then kind of moving into other cards that we run the 4 of the Oceana super combos. These are Sparking 5, and we get to draw 1 as long as we have Sparking 5. So it doesn't matter. We could stay at 8 life if we're lucky enough, but usually that doesn't happen because you don't have hard negates and you don't want to combo your whole hand away defending. So the other hard negate that we have is Oceana Shenron Negative Energy Explosion. This is the mill The mill negate, kind of like Topo, where after it's played, your opponent has to mill 4 cards from the top of their deck every time they attack after. And then it's also a 5,000 blocker. So anytime this card hits the field, it usually is a signal that the turn is over and your opponent is not going to push unless they think that they can kill you. This is also a pretty good bait for stuff like God-Sealing Trunks or Denial of Hope, or any counter that would prevent it from coming into play. Super Kamehameha being one of them. Then we run 3 of the Omega Shenron Darkness Absorbed. This lets us put a... for 1 energy, we get to choose 1 Shadow Dragon card with an energy cost of 5 or less in our battle area, place it in our drop area, and then play this card, then choose one of your opponent's battle cards and send it to the warp. It does have unique. It is a 30,000 body. So it's kind of like having a big 30,000 skillless on the field that warps a card on entry for 1 energy. It's absolutely amazing. And then kind of our kill card is the Omega Shenron Ultimate Darkness. For 2 energy, we can warp 7 Shadow Dragons in our drop area and play this card. It's a 30,000 unique triple strike. We only play 2 of these because ultimately we don't want to be putting this out unless we think we have a chance at ending the game with it. And for 2 energy, putting out a triple strike is nothing to scoff at, especially one at a 30,000. And then our secret rare, we're going to run Syn Shenron Corrupted by Darkness. This does count as a Shadow Dragon, so we're able to pick it up off of any of our effects that off of any of the Shadow Dragon effects that flip 1 and add to hand. So the whole idea with this deck is the only card in the deck that doesn't meet that requirement is the Toa, which unfortunately hits more often than it doesn't, I think. I think there's some magnetism for failing this effect. I've hit that Toa 3 times in a game before, in like a 5-turn game. So yeah, that is the card by card on the Shadow Dragon deck. Hopefully you guys like it. I hope I made sense. There's a lot of words to be said about this archetype. It's a ton of fun. It plays somewhere between cooler and old Shadow Dragons themselves. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Read your cards, know your plays. Let us make the mistakes so that you don't have to. And as always, fluff out.